Did you know that in 2024, researchers from Harvard Medical School tracked 8,000 people over the age of 60 for 15 years, and what they found shocked even the most experienced gerontologists? The people who thrived the most, who lived the longest, and who reported the highest life satisfaction weren't necessarily the ones with the biggest families or the most grandchildren visiting on Sundays. Instead, they were the ones who had built what researchers are now calling the 6 pillars of independent support. These pillars proved to be 73% more predictive of health and happiness than family relationships alone. Think about that for a moment. Everything society tells us about needing family as we age might be missing the bigger picture. The most fascinating part is that people who mastered all 6 pillars showed biological markers of being up to 12 years younger than their actual age. Their telomeres, which are the protective caps on our chromosomes that indicate biological aging, were significantly longer. Their inflammation markers were lower. Their cognitive function scores rivaled people decades younger. But here's what will really blow your mind about the number 1 most important pillar. When Stanford University researchers isolated this single factor in their 2023 mega-study, they found it literally rewired the brains of participants over 60, creating new neural pathways that scientists previously thought were impossible to form after middle age, and people who developed this one pillar reduced their risk of premature death by an astonishing 42%. Before we begin, share with us in the comments now your age and where you're watching us from. We read and reply to every single comment, so drop your comments below. Now, without any further ado, let's get started. Number 6. Your emotional resilience. Starting with the foundation that everything else builds upon, emotional resilience after 60 isn't just about staying positive when things get tough. It's about developing what psychologists call adaptive emotional regulation, which means your brain literally gets better at processing difficult emotions without letting them overwhelm your system. A 2023 study from the University of Michigan followed 3,200 adults over 60 and found that those with high emotional resilience had 31% fewer doctor visits and 28% lower rates of chronic disease. The fascinating thing is how this works in your brain. When you develop emotional resilience, your amygdala, which is the fear center of your brain, actually shrinks while your prefrontal cortex, the rational thinking part, grows stronger connections. This isn't just feel-good psychology. The researchers measured actual brain changes using fMRI scans. To build this resilience, you need to practice something called cognitive reframing every single day. This means when something challenging happens, you deliberately look for 3 different ways to interpret the situation. Let's say your arthritis is acting up. Instead of thinking, "I'm falling apart," you might reframe it as, "My body is telling me to rest today," or "This is a chance to try that new pain management technique," or "At least I can still do gentle stretches." The key is doing this consistently until it becomes automatic. Research shows it takes about 66 days of daily practice for this to become your brain's default response. You also need to develop what's called emotional granularity, which means getting really specific about what you're feeling instead of just saying you feel bad. Scientists at Northeastern University found that people who could identify and name at least 20 different emotions had 34% better health outcomes after 60. Start keeping an emotion journal where you write down exactly what you're feeling using specific words like frustrated, disappointed, anxious, melancholy, or restless instead of just sad or upset. The more precise you get, the better your brain becomes at processing these emotions without letting them damage your health. Another crucial technique is called temporal distancing. When something upsets you, imagine yourself looking back at this moment from 5 years in the future. Studies show this simple mental trick reduces emotional intensity by up to 45% and helps you make better decisions about how to respond. Let's now move up to something that might surprise you with how much it matters. Before we continue, if you have been enjoying the video so far, hit that like button so more seniors can see it, and subscribe. We've got more powerful senior health tips videos coming every day, and you don't want to miss the next one. Number 5. Your physical health. Physical health after 60 goes way beyond just exercising and eating vegetables, though those are important. The real game changer is understanding and optimizing what scientists call your physiological reserve, which is basically how much backup capacity your body systems have. Think of it like having spare batteries for a flashlight. A landmark 2024 study from Johns Hopkins tracked 5,000 people over 60 and found that those who actively built their physiological reserve had 38% fewer hospitalizations and recovered 50% faster from illnesses or injuries. The most important aspect is muscle mass, but not for the reasons you might think. Your muscles are actually an endocrine organ, meaning they release hormones and proteins called myokines that directly communicate with your brain, bones, and immune system. Every pound of muscle you have after 60 is like having a pharmaceutical factory in your body producing anti-inflammatory compounds. Research from the Mayo Clinic shows that people over 60 who maintain their muscle mass have 40% lower rates of cognitive decline. To build and maintain muscle after 60, you need to do resistance training at least twice a week, but here's the key that most people miss. You need to progressively increase the resistance or difficulty every 2 weeks, even if it's just by a tiny amount. Your muscles only grow when they're challenged beyond their current capacity. Studies show that people over 60 can increase their strength by up to 174% in just 6 months with proper progressive training. The second critical component is something called metabolic flexibility, which is your body's ability to switch between burning carbs and burning fat for energy. Most people over 60 lose this flexibility, which is why they feel tired all the time. To restore it, you need to practice time-restricted eating, where you eat all your meals within an 8 to 10 hour window. A 2023 study found that people over 60 who did this for just 12 weeks improved their metabolic flexibility by 43% and reported 35% more energy throughout the day. Your cardiovascular system needs specific attention too, but not through long, boring cardio sessions. The latest research shows that exercise snacking is actually more effective for people over 60. This means doing short bursts of activity throughout the day, like climbing stairs for 2 minutes every hour or doing 20 squats while waiting for coffee to brew. These mini workouts add up to massive benefits, with studies showing they improve cardiovascular health markers by 29% more than traditional hour-long gym sessions. Now we're getting into the pillars that really separate thriving from just surviving. Number 4. Your financial health. Pillar number 4 is one that most people completely overlook: financial health. You can have all the love and family in the world, but if inflation or a market crash wipes out your savings, that security disappears fast. And let's be honest, financial stress can do more damage to your peace of mind than almost anything else. The key is developing what's called financial resilience, which has 3 main components that work together. First is diversification of income sources. People over 60 who have at least 3 different sources of income, even if they're small, report 52% less financial anxiety than those relying on just 1 or 2 sources. This could be Social Security plus a part-time job plus a small rental income, or a pension plus investment dividends plus selling crafts online. The point is not putting all your eggs in one basket. That's why I wanted to share this. I came across a company called Augusta Precious Metals that focuses on education, not pressure. They teach you how a gold IRA works and how it can help you protect your retirement savings so you can stay independent no matter what the markets do. They've even put together a free guide that explains everything. You can grab it in the link below. It's one of the best steps you can take to keep your financial pillar strong. Beyond diversification, the second component is what economists call consumption smoothing, which means adjusting your spending gradually rather than making drastic cuts. Research shows that people who reduce their spending by just 2% every year, starting at 60, maintain much better mental and physical health than those who suddenly slash their budgets during a crisis. The third component is financial literacy acceleration. A Yale study found that people over 60 who spent just 15 minutes a day learning about personal finance for 6 months increased their wealth by an average of 23% and reduced financial stress by 41%. This isn't about becoming a Wall Street expert. It's about understanding basics like how Medicare supplements work, what sequence to withdraw retirement funds, and how to spot financial scams. The protection against scams is especially critical since people over 60 lose an estimated $3 billion annually to fraud. Those with higher financial literacy are 67% less likely to fall victim. Creating a spending hierarchy is another powerful tool. List your expenses in order of importance to your well-being, not just survival. Researchers found that people who consciously chose to spend on experiences and relationships over material goods reported 38% higher life satisfaction. This might mean prioritizing money for visiting friends over upgrading your car. Having an emergency fund specifically for health-related expenses reduces anxiety by 44%, according to recent studies. Even having just $1,000 set aside specifically for health emergencies makes a measurable difference in stress hormones and sleep quality. The compound effect of financial security on your other pillars is remarkable. When you're not constantly worried about money, your emotional resilience improves, your physical health benefits from reduced stress, and you can maintain the social connections and pursue the purposes that make life meaningful after 60. Now here's where things get really interesting with the social aspects. Number 3, your social circle. Your social circle after 60 is literally a matter of life and death, and I'm not exaggerating. The Harvard study of adult development, which has been running for over 80 years now, just released data showing that people over 60 with strong social circles have a 50% lower risk of premature death. That's a bigger impact than quitting smoking or losing 40 pounds. But here's the crucial part that most people miss. It's not about the quantity of social connections, but rather what researchers call social convoy quality. Your social convoy is the group of people who travel through life with you, and after 60, the quality of these relationships matters exponentially more than the number. A 2024 study from Stanford found that people over 60 need 3 distinct types of social connections to thrive. First are intimate companions, the 2 to 3 people you can call at 3 a.m. if you're in trouble. These relationships reduce inflammation markers by 32% and lower your risk of cognitive decline by 40%. Second are sympathetic others, which are 5 to 15 people who share your interests and values. These might be people from your book club, hiking group, or volunteer organization. Having regular contact with sympathetic others increases production of oxytocin, the bonding hormone, by up to 48%. Third are peripheral ties, which are the 50 to 150 loose connections like your barista, mail carrier, or gym acquaintances. These weak ties are surprisingly powerful, providing what sociologists call ambient awareness that keeps your brain sharp and engaged. People with robust peripheral ties score 25% higher on cognitive tests. Building these circles after 60 requires intentional effort. Join at least 2 regular group activities where you see the same people weekly. Research shows it takes about 200 hours of contact to develop a close friendship, which sounds like a lot but breaks down to just 4 hours a week for a year. The key is consistency and vulnerability. Share something slightly personal each time you meet someone, gradually increasing the depth. This social penetration theory builds bonds 60% faster than just doing activities together without personal sharing. Technology can amplify your social circle if used correctly. Video calls activate the same brain regions as in-person meetings when you can see facial expressions clearly. People over 60 who have weekly video calls with friends show 27% less cognitive decline than those who only text or phone call. But avoid social media scrolling, which actually increases loneliness by 31%. Instead, use technology for direct, meaningful communication. This next one might surprise you with how powerful it is. Number 2, your sense of purpose. Your sense of purpose after 60 is like a master switch that affects every cell in your body. Japanese researchers studying people in Okinawa, one of the world's blue zones where people routinely live past 100, found that having what they call ikigai or life purpose adds an average of 7 years to life expectancy. But here's what's really mind-blowing. A 2024 study from Rush University Medical Center scanned the brains of 500 people over 60 and found that those with a strong sense of purpose had 44% less amyloid plaque buildup, the protein associated with Alzheimer's disease. Their neurons were literally protected by having something meaningful to wake up for each morning. Purpose after 60 isn't about grand missions or changing the world. It's about what psychologists call generative purpose, which means contributing something that will outlast you. This triggers the release of what scientists call eudaimonic wellness molecules, including increased BDNF, which is basically miracle grow for your brain. People with generative purpose show 52% better memory retention and 38% faster processing speed on cognitive tests. Finding your purpose requires exploring three intersecting circles. First is what you're good at, your accumulated skills and knowledge from decades of life. Second is what the world needs, problems you see that bothered you. Third is what brings you joy, activities that make you lose track of time. Your purpose lives where these three circles overlap. Research shows it typically takes 3 to 6 months of exploration to identify your true purpose after 60. Start by spending 1 hour each week trying different volunteer activities, teaching skills you have, or working on creative projects. Track which ones energize you versus drain you. The ones that energize you are aligned with your purpose. A Carnegie Mellon study found that people over 60 who volunteer for just 2 hours per week in purpose-aligned activities reduce their mortality risk by 40%. But it has to be meaningful to you personally. Generic volunteering without personal connection only provides 8% of the benefit. Creating what researchers call purpose rituals amplifies the effects. This means starting each day by writing one sentence about how you'll pursue your purpose today, even in a tiny way. People who do this simple practice report 45% higher life satisfaction and show measurable improvements in immune function markers. Your purpose can evolve and should evolve as you age. What mattered at 60 might shift by 70. The key is staying connected to that sense of contributing and mattering. Studies show that people who regularly update and refine their sense of purpose maintain cognitive function equivalent to people 10 years younger. Now for the number one most important pillar that changes everything. Number 1. Your ability to adapt. Your ability to adapt after 60 is the supreme pillar that determines whether you thrive or merely survive, and the science behind this is absolutely revolutionary. That Stanford study I mentioned earlier discovered that people over 60 who score high on adaptability measures literally grow new neurons in their hippocampus, the brain's memory center, at rates previously thought impossible after age 30. These individuals showed 42% lower mortality rates and maintained independence an average of 9.3 years longer than their less adaptable peers. Adaptability after 60 means developing what neuroscientists call cognitive flexibility, which is your brain's ability to switch between different thought patterns and behaviors based on changing circumstances. Think of it like being a mental gymnast who can smoothly transition between different moves. The incredible thing is that this flexibility can be trained and improved at any age. When researchers taught adaptability skills to people in their 70s and 80s, brain scans showed increased gray matter volume in the prefrontal cortex within just 12 weeks. These participants improved their problem-solving abilities by 67% and reported 55% less anxiety about aging. The core of adaptability is something called response flexibility, which means having multiple strategies for dealing with challenges. Instead of having one rigid way of doing things, adaptable people over 60 develop what researchers call a strategy repertoire. For example, if arthritis makes your usual morning walk difficult, an adaptable person might switch to swimming, chair exercises, or walking at a different time when joints are less stiff. This seems simple, but the brain changes are profound. Each time you successfully adapt, your brain releases growth factors that protect against cognitive decline. Building adaptability requires deliberate practice in 3 key areas. First is novel challenge seeking, which means regularly doing things you've never done before. This could be learning to use a new app, trying a different recipe each week, or taking a different route to familiar places. A University of Texas study found that people over 60 who engaged in novel challenges for just 15 hours per week showed brain plasticity similar to people in their 40s. The key is the challenges must be genuinely new, not just variations of things you already know. Second is perspective flexibility, which is the ability to see situations from multiple viewpoints. Practice this by deliberately arguing the opposite side of your own opinions for 5 minutes each day. This mental exercise increases cognitive reserve by 34%, according to recent research. When you read news articles, try and understand why someone might reasonably disagree with your view. This doesn't mean changing your values, but expanding your mental flexibility. Third is emotional adaptability, which means adjusting your emotional responses to match new realities rather than clinging to how things used to be. This involves what psychologists call acceptance and commitment therapy principles. Accept what you cannot change while committing to adapt what you can control. People who master this show 48% lower rates of depression and anxiety after 60. The most powerful adaptability tool is what's called implementation intentions, which are pre-planned responses to potential obstacles. For every goal or plan you have, identify 3 things that could go wrong and decide in advance how you'll adapt. Research shows this simple practice increases successful adaptation by 71%. For example, if you plan to exercise but rain might interfere, decide in advance that you'll do indoor exercises instead. This pre-planning reduces the cognitive load of adaptation in the moment. Adaptable people over 60 also practice selective optimization with compensation, which means recognizing your changing capabilities and strategically adapting. Maybe you can't play tennis for 2 hours anymore, but you can play doubles for 45 minutes. You're optimizing what you can do while compensating for limitations. This approach maintains 89% of the benefits while reducing strain and injury risk. The compound effect of adaptability on the other 5 pillars is extraordinary. Adaptable people maintain better physical health because they adjust exercise routines as needed. They preserve social circles by finding new ways to connect when old methods become difficult. They sustain financial health by adapting spending and earning strategies to changing circumstances. They maintain purpose by evolving their contributions as abilities change. They build emotional resilience through accepting and adapting to life's transitions. The intersection of these 6 pillars creates what researchers call successful aging synergy, where each pillar reinforces and amplifies the others. When you develop all 6, the combined effect is greater than the sum of the parts. You're not just adding years to your life, but life to your years. The research is clear that while family relationships matter, these 6 pillars of support provide a robust framework for thriving after 60 that transcends traditional family structures. You have the power to build these pillars at any age, starting today. The science shows it's never too late to develop these capabilities, and the benefits begin appearing within weeks of consistent practice. Your future self will thank you for every step you take towards strengthening these essential pillars of support. Now, we want to hear from you. Which of these 6 pillars do you personally rely on the most to stay happy and strong after 60? Do you believe emotional support from friends can truly be stronger than family bonds as we age? Share with us your experiences and opinions in the comments below. We love to hear them. Thanks for watching.